Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Hi. So today,
Monday with Jesus.
Money with Jesus, and we have the story for the second week of Lent, according to the Revised Common Lectionary. You follow that. And this is the last week that will be in the Gospel of Mark for some time. Story is from Mark 8, and Tom will tell it to us.
Jesus came with his disciples into the region of Caesarea Philippi. And he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they said, "John the Baptist, others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." And he said, "And who do you say that I am?" And Simon Peter said, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly charged them to tell no one about it. Then he began to teach them that it was necessary for the Son of Man to endure great suffering and to be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and to be killed, and on the third day to rise. He said this plainly. And Simon Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But Jesus, looking over, saw his disciples, and he said to him, and he rebuked him and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on divine things, but on human things." And then he called together the crowd with the disciples, and he said to them, "If anyone wants to follow me and be my disciple, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever saves their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what does it profit anyone to gain the whole world and lose their life? What can one give in exchange for your life? But whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of that one also will the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." And he said, "Truly I say to you, there are some standing here now who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God come with power."
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay. Now, one thing I noticed, because I was kind of following along with what they have in the lectionary, and what you told seemed to be a little bit longer. You started earlier in the Gospel of Mark than the lectionary does. So the lectionary just starts with Jesus began to teach them about the Son of Man suffering and all
Right,
that.
right.
You started with the conversation with Jesus asking, "Who do people say that I am?" So just explain a little bit why you think it's important to add that section.
We're telling the story. I'm telling the story. Mark clearly structured this story to be told in the context of Peter's confession that Jesus is the Messiah. And so what follows then in his discussion with those who were with the crowd doesn't make any sense, apart from this confession that Peter made and the scandal of it. So the words about discipleship and following him and denying oneself and taking up one's cross, it's clearly dependent on what precedes it and then on what follows. There's some standing here who will not taste death. So it's the way that Mark structured the story that I'm telling it.
Yeah, because really there's nothing mentioned. I'm looking again, there's nothing about the Messiah in this without that earlier part, right?
That's right.
Jesus refers to the Son of Man, but not to the Messiah.
Right.
Jesus never directly says, "Yeah, I'm the Messiah."
Right. But it implies that
right.
he said.
It does seem to be. But so, and he actually doesn't ever say like, "I will be handed over and I will be crucified." He talks about the Son of Man. Right. Why? So I guess he's referring to himself when he says Son of Man.
That's what's implied in the story, that it's a self-reference, yes.
Are there other places in Mark where Jesus does that?
Well, there isn't any place that is as explicitly, addressed to his calling himself the Son of Man. There are other places where he does, but not in the context of the Messianic confession.
Okay. All right. So if people hearing this assume Jesus is saying, "Yes, I'm the Messiah," what would be their expectations of a Messiah?
It would be that he would organize an army, that he would fight against the Gentiles, and that he would liberate the people of Israel and establish the kingdom of God as a kingdom of Israel, free and independent of Roman domination. So Jesus is here announcing, in effect, a different understanding of the kingdom of God and of what the Messiah will do.
Okay. And when he's saying that this Messiah himself is going to be crucified, is that
right?
Are there other indications? I mean, did that come out of the blue in the Gospel of Mark, or there's some reasons that we might not be terribly surprised as listeners that might happen?
There are other times when there is a prediction that he may be killed. So at the end of the story of the man with a withered hand, the Pharisees and the Herodians gathered together and began to plot how they might kill him. Mm-hmm. But there isn't anything that is explicitly the chief priests and the scribes with the elders to kill him.
Okay, so when he says this in response to Peter's having talked about him being the Messiah, Peter starts to rebuke him.
Right.
And then Jesus turns and looks at, I guess, the others who are there, and then he rebukes Peter. There's a lot of rebuking going on here. What's all that about?
Well, Peter rebukes Jesus because he doesn't believe, he doesn't have any expectation that the Messiah would be killed, and that Jesus would be killed. So he is rebuking him for this prophecy, and is effectively saying, no, this cannot be. You cannot be claiming to be the Messiah and talk about being killed and on the third day to rise. No. And Jesus responds, rebuking, seeing the disciples watching. And clearly they were looking at what this interchange was between Jesus and Peter. Jesus rebukes Peter and says, "Get behind me, Satan, for you're not setting your mind on divine things, but on human things." So it's a major confrontation between them.
Right. And so Jesus is talking then to the disciples and the crowd, and kind of lays down, this is what you have to do if you want to be my follower, be my disciple. You have to deny yourself.
Right.
what does that mean?
Well, I think in this context, it means that you would deny your own self-interest, that you would deny your life, in effect, and would deny any acting out of your own self-interest, out of your own life.
And then after he's talked about that a little bit, then he says he talks about those who are ashamed of me and my words.
Right.
Why would someone be ashamed of Jesus and his words?
It's a source of shame for a leader to be killed, and for him to, in effect, accept this as a necessity of what it means to be the Messiah is then a scandal for the listeners as well as for Simon Peter.
Sorry, so my dog is with me, and it's her dinner time, and she's whimpering, and I'm going, no, quiet. I'm rebuking Tippy. I'm sorry. I lost my attention for a minute there. All right, I'm back. Well, we're both back. Let's see. All right. What do I want to ask? Oh, I know. All of this that he says about, deny yourselves and you'll lose your life. You want to save all of that. It doesn't really make following Jesus, being a disciple of Jesus, all that appealing. Why would you be motivated? I mean, back then, today, why would people be, well, today, if we take these words seriously or even know that they're there, why would people be motivated or have the energy to follow Jesus in his way?
Jesus is proclaiming a kingdom of God. He is announcing a reign of God that will be established not by military victory, but by righteousness, by nonviolence, by love, by reaching out and caring for those who are sick, by loving your enemies. So his proposal is that his listeners are invited to follow a Messiah who does not fit the expectations of the Messiah in the traditions of Israel. A basic difference is the difference between violence and nonviolence. Jesus is announcing a nonviolent establishment of the kingdom of God, and that this will happen without his disciples taking up a sword, going into battle against the Romans. I think this is also a story that is being heard and told in the more or less immediate aftermath of the Jewish-Roman War, the greatest tragedy in the entire history of Israel, when the people of Israel did follow leaders who were advocating a violent insurrection. And it happened. And the Romans came back, they destroyed the temple. Over 1 million people were killed by the Romans in the context of this understanding of the kingdom of God. So Jesus is proclaiming another way, a way of nonviolence.
Yeah. I've been watching Game of Thrones because I heard about it. Yeah.
Speaking of violence.
Yeah, that's what when you were talking about, that's what made me think of it. It's a compelling, story, but boy, there's a lot of violence in it, and there's a lot of various gods in it. There's actually quite a lot of stuff in there about all these different gods and all these different claimants to the throne and people vying after power, and they're all doing it through lots of violence. So Jesus' way, and it's fantasy, but unfortunately, it does. It's just a little bit too close to what reality of human behavior has been throughout throughout the days. So Jesus clearly had something different in mind in terms of leadership and governing as well in the kingdom of God. So
It
anyway,
is the case that we tend to tell the story of Western civilization as a history of wars.
Yeah.
And so this understanding of that is present in the Game of Thrones of a sequence of violent overthrows and violent establishments of a kingdom and of poisonings and killings of
vengeance, a lot of
candidates.
vengeance. Mhm.
Yeah.
Vengeful
So
killing.
that's often how the story of Western civilization is told.
Yeah.
But it's also told in the context of the story of Jesus as an alternative story,
Right.
as an alternative way that was full of hope and possibilities.
And there have been some who have followed that way faithfully and made a difference in the world. So,
Right.
all right. Well, thanks for being with us for another week, and I hope you all have a very good week, and find ways to get closer, grow your relationship to God during this special season of Lent.
And I'll say one more thing.
Okay.
The expectation of both Mark's audience and of audiences now who hear this story is that this proclamation, this announcement by Jesus, this conflict between Jesus and Peter is a conflict that is central to this story, that is central to the understanding of Jesus as the Messiah. It's another way. It's a way that opens up the possibility of peace. So it's a proclamation of Jesus as the Messiah of peace, rather than war, of nonviolence rather than violence.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Bye, everybody.
Bye.